Hello everyone. Thanks for setting aside your valuable time to participate in today's webinar. It's great to see we have a good turnout today. Before we begin, please take a minute to go through the do's and don'ts on the screen. Let me take this opportunity to introduce our esteemed guest, Richard Haugen, Vice President, Pre-Sales, Phoenix Business Consulting. Phoenix has long and fascinating association with Richard. Richard is a subject matter expert in SAP ByDesign and has been helping customers and companies in its implementation. In today's session, Richard will brief SAP Business ByDesign for pharma companies. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you very much. And just before we'll come back to this slide, but if you're interested in what you see today and you want to have further discussions about SAP or SAP Business ByDesign, here's some contact information for you. And I'm going to pause my screen really quick and shift gears to another PowerPoint. And let's talk about SAP Business ByDesign and how it can work for pharma and life science companies like yourselves. So I just want to start off talking about Phoenix Business Consulting. Phoenix has been around 22 years. We're we have a headquarters in Asia, in India. Then we also have headquarters in the United States, in Florida. We have been around for about 22 years. Really started in the ECC space, supporting actually public organizations. We have a lot of cities, states, universities, school districts as our customers. We have well over 100 employees in our 4 main offices. We actually support, especially out of India, implementations that are more global. In the US, we're kind of very much focused on the US market and Canada, but the India office I know actually is working really across the world. We have hundreds of projects under our belt, and one of the really unique factors about Phoenix is we have no failed implementations, and that's something we're very proud of, and it is also something that's quite unusual for an organization that's been doing this for as long as we have. We are a full spectrum SAP partner, which means we can offer the correct solution to meet everyone's needs. For S/4HANA, SuccessFactors, SAP Analytics Cloud, Ariba Concur, and now also SAP Business ByDesign. This is actually kind of unique in that we do offer, a full suite of services to our customers, both as far as initial go live and sort of initial software selection, but also as an ongoing support partner. So, just want to talk about the economy and technology. Everything's happening these days faster and faster. This is one thing where, regardless of where you're at in the world or what industry you're in, even public and private sector, organizations are discovering that everything's changing at a more rapid pace. And this is causing a lot of stresses for organizations. That we are really seeing that these stresses and these needs are common really across every industry. One thing is, the increase in product innovation, where you have to bring products to market faster. The product life cycle is just increasing at a much more rapid pace than it's ever been before. Consumers are requiring more of everything, more customer service, higher quality products, and they're expecting to engage with an organization. So it's no longer enough that they want to buy your product and just move on and consume it. They want to engage with that organization. And the workforce is changing. We have a younger generation, which is actually now, in the US, it's the millennials now outnumber the non-millennials in the workforce. This is the first year where there's more of them than the non-millennials. But also the familiarization with technology and just the exposure to technology at a much younger age has created a workforce that has a much different set of expectations. And as always, controlling spending. It's one of the side effects of all this, the speed is that people can spend money, budgeted or not, at a much more rapid pace than ever before. And there's also a lot of drive now to get into new business models, to disrupt traditional supply chains or disrupt traditional business models. And to do that, you need to be nimble. And if that's happening to you, you have to be nimble as well. So, you know, the old sort of slow plodding approach that a lot of organizations have just doesn't work in our modern economy. And SAP has said, you know, all of this requires a new approach, but also requires new software. Traditional systems don't have the ability to provide leadership and managers the information they need to respond to these changes and these challenges in the market. So SAP has coined the term called the Intelligent Enterprise as what you need to respond in this environment. And we're talking about two types of data. We have operational data, which we call O data, and experience data called X data. So traditionally, companies have had a pretty good handle on their operation data. So that was your traditional data for like HR, customer data, your CRM data, maybe a finance application. And those were typically siloed. But now there's also this experience data. Companies used to treat these data elements as separate, but they're finding more and more that they're actually very closely tied together. And so the challenge is, how do we bring this? And so once companies, how do we bring this together? So what's happened is companies have sort of expanded their control of the O data. When you get in an ERP, you're adding the manufacturing, supply chain, and procurement all under one data set. But also, the challenge then becomes, how do we take that data and combine it with the data we're getting from our customers in the perception of our brand and our product in the market, right? Because maybe if your supply chain isn't good or has a fault and you don't fulfill orders enough, it's going to feed back into your customer data, which is going to, again, impact your brand's perception, which will actually feed back into your customer retention. So there's this whole area here of trying to bring back, because there is actually a feedback loop between these two areas. So how do you tie it all together? Well, you really need an intelligent enterprise, what SAP would call intelligence. And that's where we're taking data management, some integration, because you're always going to have third-party elements feeding data in, and then bringing that together to give you a complete view of your organization so you can respond. Currently in the market, SAP is the only ERP or software provider that actually can give you a unified view of all this data in a single platform, using like ByDesign, Concur, Ariba, SuccessFactors, and Qualtrics, and then tying it together with the cloud platform and the analytics cloud to pull this all together from a single vendor where all the software is actually predefined to work together, which makes it a much more cost-effective and adaptable solution to meet your needs. The impact of moving to an intelligent enterprise framework is actually quite dramatic. They're seeing, like, you know, increases in revenues. We'll actually play with some auto matching today, which is using machine learning to OCR and match your AP invoices. And it actually does things like, you know, get your maintenance costs lower for your plant maintenance, where you can predict when a machine or a work center will fail, and actually can improve your worker safety. So what's an intelligent enterprise look like? Well, first off, it has to have a simple, easy to use user interface, and it has to cover end-to-end business processes with embedded intelligence, and it needs to be consumable in a modular fashion. And this is really important in the life science industry, because especially for a startup, is the needs change over time. And that could be very rapid in some cases, or it could be over years. But you'll go from an organization that actually needs very simple needs, maybe accounting and project management, to all of a sudden complex manufacturing capabilities in a regulated industry. And to do that without, you know, doing what we call a rip and replace, where you have to completely change out your ERP, you need a system that has the capabilities initially that you can then leverage as your needs grow over time. So SAP, if you're not familiar with them, they are the world's leader in ERP, over 440,000 customers across the globe. They spend about $4.3 billion in R&D every year. And that's actually really important, because we're going to see that when we talk about these increasing life cycles, SAP has been the leader in ERP for about 45 years now. And they keep that leadership position only by continuing to lead in innovation and to push the envelope of what is possible in ERP. And that's actually led to its dominance, where, you know, at this point, 77% of the world's transaction volume hits the SAP system. 82% of the world's medical devices are actually produced by SAP customers. And in the life science industry, well, we can frankly say that the entire life science industry runs SAP. 97% of the life science companies in the Global 2000, Forbes Global 2000 are SAP customers. All of the top 20 pharmaceutical companies are SAP customers. And when we look at the dominance here, and the reason is, well, why is that? Well, you know, part because we're really wonderful people, but more importantly, we're very good at what we do. We help organizations drive their operational excellence, financial excellence. We improve the collaboration between suppliers and your customers to help increase your competitiveness, improve your responsiveness, and then also in a world where you need traceability of drugs and devices back to the original manufacturing and the components, that is just something that capability is just baked into actually every level of SAP software. We're also very tied into quality management systems, and we have embedded quality, and that helps you bring your drugs to market faster, and then brings your medical devices to market faster, and also helps you meet the regulatory and financial requirements in a global fashion, because very seldom nowadays are companies just doing this in one country. In fact, in the US, we often see that the go-to-market is actually to go to market overseas first. So you might develop a drug or a medical device in the US, but you might get regulatory approval in the Netherlands first. Well, if you do that, you're going to go to market in the Netherlands. All of a sudden, you go from a company that could use maybe QuickBooks, which is a very simple financial application in the US to meet US requirements while you're in R&D, to having requirements to support, GDPR in Europe, which is the German data privacy requirements. So it really becomes it's where companies, to meet these requirements, there's very few companies out there as an ERP vendor that can do that. So when we look at SAP, and when people think of SAP, they quite often think that they must have like a lot of different solutions. But actually, there's only 3 flavors of SAP ERP software. There's the large enterprise solution, which used to be known as ECC and then R3. It's now known as S/4HANA. You can get that as cloud and premise or premise. That is typically and traditionally for very large enterprises, and most importantly for companies that have a very large IT staff, where you're doing a significant spend and a significant amount of time to get this up and running. Then there's the mid-size application, which is cloud only. So it's called SAP Business ByDesign. And Business ByDesign is designed for mid-size organizations or high growth. So it'll actually scale from about 5, which is the minimum subscription, is 5 users, to the largest customer has, I believe, almost 10,000 users. That is quite a range, but it is designed as a cloud application. It's not the big stuff. It doesn't try to be the big stuff, but it's really sweet in a box. Then there's another organization application called SAP Business One, which has actually got about, I think they're approaching 70,000 customers worldwide. Business One is a very good application. Typically, you could run it on premise or in the cloud, but it's really designed for less complex organizations. It's a single company, single database model. So if you're in one company or one country, you're not going to be going anywhere else. It's a good application, but it's typically for less complex organizations and would tip in people with less complex regulatory requirements than you would see in a medical device or a biopharmaceutical company. So let's talk about what do fit. So what do biopharmaceutical companies and life sciences companies really need? Well, when they start production, or they're a startup, their needs are actually pretty simple, and they're usually looking at, we want to control our back-end costs because we want to put all of our spend in the R&D, right? So we don't want to have extraneous spend. They want to have a predictable cost of ownership because they're probably looking at going 4 to 5 years without any revenue because they're in R&D, and so they want to have a low IT burden. Again, sorry, but they're not thinking that we want to hire 10 IT people to support this. They want to keep that IT burden low because that is a cost that would otherwise could be spent for developing a drug. And they want things to like occur because a lot of these organizations are actually they're in spend mode, and so really in spend quality. So quite often these companies, when they start looking at it, say an ERP, they've already got something like Concur or an HCM solution because they're hiring professionals quite often at a very rapid pace. So they might already have a standalone expense travel application or an HCM type solution in place to handle the onboarding of, say, like 100 PhDs. So at that point, they're staying pretty simple. But as they move into pre-trial and trial, this is where we're talking about multi-company. You might be in one country, but your trial might be in Japan. So you're having to manage that spend in Japan. So all of a sudden you need modular function. So you need to be multi-company, multi-country, multi-gap. And it's really important to have best practice accounting because most biopharmaceutical companies do have a buyout plan, or they're planning on hopefully getting acquired someday. So as part of their investment strategy. And pretty much every one of those strategies will require an audit. And so if you don't have a best practices in place, you're going to get beat up on your audit. That will affect your valuation and possibly your ability to go public or to get bought out in a timely fashion. Once you move to going to market, your needs are going to change, and they might change really rapidly. So, like, for example, right now in the COVID world, there's going to be companies that are going from R&D to having to manufacture, hundreds of millions of doses very rapidly. And so we call that the hockey sticking, where your needs or requirements are going up a little bit, and then they go almost vertical. And so when you hit the go-to-market, you need manufacturing. You're going to need to start formula tracking, where it might have been an Excel or a formulation software, but now you're going to an industrial manufacturing. You need a different level of bill of materials. You're going to need genealogy tracking, where you're going to have to trace everything. All your raw components, all your raw materials, everything has to be traced back to the original purchase order of the vendor. So if there's ever a problem, you can immediately see where that product went, where that product is at, and issue a recall if necessary, or at least to stop further consumption of that product. So you need to be able to lock it immediately. You're going to need batch and shelf, advanced MRP, material resource planning, to make sure you're doing the procurement you need to do. You have to buy, you have to buy what you need to buy, when you need to buy it, to make what you need to make, to ship to customers on time. And you're also probably going to you might have outsourced manufacturing. So you might be using third-party logistics and fulfillment. And so you need a system that'll support that, which also leads to global distribution control. So you can sell one product to a customer in the Netherlands, but maybe you can't sell that same product to a customer in France because you don't have regulatory requirements there. And speaking of regulatory requirements, you need to meet 21 CFR Part 11 in the US, EU Annex 11 at minimum, and then the China FDA requirements. And also you're going to need validation. So you're going to have to get certification and validation. So having organizations that can template that out and deliver that to you quickly is very important. So our solution, we would say, that is really ideal for most small and mid-sized organizations in this life science industry is actually SAP Business ByDesign. It was built, it's launched in 2007, so it was actually launched this century. It was built by SAP to contain the best of SAP business practices as a suite in a box. It is built for manufacturing, distribution, CPG, project services, and public sectors. It'll scale from 10 to 10,000 users with ease. And it was built with it was built around 35 end-to-end business practices in SAP. It's actually been pretty wildly adapted by life sciences companies. So everything from actually Total Joint Orthopedics, that's a class 3 medical device manufacturer. Merck is actually running that. That's a biopharmaceutical. They've actually implemented ByDesign in 7 subsidiaries as a validated system as for these subsidiaries that really, they don't want to run big SAP because it's just too much software, too cumbersome, and quite frankly, a distraction from what those subsidiaries are trying to do. And so they've rolled out Business ByDesign as a solution for those companies to focus on what they want to do without being crushed by big SAP. And so we're seeing this actually across a lot of different organizations. And the reason is it's suite in a box. So the nice thing about ByDesign is these 35 end-to-end business scenarios. It's integrated suite. It has embedded analytics, and it's designed for companies that grow. There's no limit to the scalability as far as transaction volumes, and it's subject to continuous innovations. It is hosted and delivered by SAP, so upgrades and patches are not something that you ever have to worry about. It's actually delivered by SAP as a byproduct. When we talk about end-to-end solution suite in a box, the neat thing is that it's modular. So you can start off with just finance, and then as your needs go, maybe add project management, and then some sales and service. But when you need manufacturing, procurement, and production, that's built into the application. You don't need to reconfigure. There's nothing else to buy. All the functionality comes with the subscription. All you have to do is enable the functionality within the software. So you go in and turn it on, say, hey, we need manufacturing. You can turn on manufacturing, and you've got best of class manufacturing right out of the box. It's also designed to build and to grow and extend. So being created this century, Business ByDesign uses this century's technology. So we have 306 web services, 77 end-to-end integration scenarios that are predefined by SAP just to make it simple to roll things out. But it was, at a nutshell, ByDesign is designed with the presumption that sooner or later you're going to have electronic purchase orders or sales orders coming in. You're going to be dealing with external data sources that you need to integrate. So it was built with that presumption, which makes it very easy to adapt and modify this to take advantage of your requirements. It also was pre-built to integrate. So if you're associated with a large enterprise and are looking at this as a two-tier solution, that two-tier capability is actually predefined by SAP. So it's not something you have to cook up. It's actually been predefined and pre-delivered by SAP as a solution. So ByDesign is actually designed to work as a two-tier solution for a larger, for a subsidiary of a larger enterprise. So all of that's actually been predefined. Is there any questions so far? I'll stop real quick and listen for questions. So how does this match to your requirements? Well, so when you're looking at ByDesign in this life sciences industry, we actually hit every single area. And low initial cost, you can start with 5 or 10 users, just doing accounting. It's a predictable cost of ownership. There's no charge for upgrades. There's no charge for storage. And so it's all built into you actually have 24/7 support built into your subscription. So it becomes a predictable cost of ownership. You want to know what your cost for ByDesign will be in 3 years? Tell me how many users you expect to have, and I'll tell you exactly what that cost will be. It has low IT burden. Most organizations maybe have one person, but quite often it's not unusual where they have no IT people, and maybe they're just working with their solution partner like Phoenix to support whatever changes they need to be have made in the back end. It has pre-canned connections to Concur, SuccessFactors, and it is, as I mentioned, completely modular. By definition, it is multi-company, multi-country, multi-gap. And it has SAP best practice accounting built in. So you can go public with Business ByDesign in any exchange in the world. It will meet those requirements. And the localizations, for example, like India localization or German tax localization, those localizations are supported by SAP. So when Canada changes their tax law, which they just did last year, that is supported by SAP. When Britain finally comes out with their Brexit requirements, which they haven't done yet, SAP is actually geared up and ready to support that with Business ByDesign as well. So that actually is a great, from a legal exposure, it reduces your legal exposure, but also that means you don't have to worry about that because that's what SAP does for you. And it will track all your R&D costs. We'll play with that a little bit later. And as your needs grow when you start going to market, we have the embedded manufacturing, the tracking, the genealogy, the advanced MRP, embedded quality, and then we are, of course, defined. So Business ByDesign was designed as a global solution. So I can handle complex global distribution and manufacturing requirements. And I can also help you meet your 21 CFR Part 11, the EU Annex 11, and China FDR. And one of the neat innovations now is that there's a couple partners out there that are doing canned integration. So they can do a 21 CFR Part 11 validation for ByDesign for a bid. And then they'll maintain that for you on an ongoing basis. So you don't even have to worry about the validation. There are companies that can offer that to you as a service. So I want to talk really quickly on implementation, because one of the ways that ByDesign keeps the cost low is that actually it has a very innovative implementation methodology. It is something where it is really designed to be weeks and months as opposed to months to years. But it is a fixed methodology. And what we like to say is it doesn't matter how big your project is or how many locations we need to implement ByDesign in. What we have to do doesn't change. It has actually got the project management is built into the application itself, and it breaks down into 4 main phases. So we do the project kickoff, we come back, we do what's called the system initialization and configuration, where we take what we've done discovering your organization, we cook it up in the system, we come back and we present that to you. We'll probably have a couple iterations as you like some things and don't. We'll have to modify the system. And then we go to, once we accept the solution, we're able to go to testing, where all of a sudden the labor goes very much from us. It's going more to you in your organization where you're going to need to do some testing. And then once that testing is complete, and this is not to scale, this is going to be about 40% of your project timeline. Once you're done with your testing, we're able to plan to go cutting over. That typically starts about 30 days in advance, where we look for people readiness, data readiness, systems readiness, and if there's any integrations, the integrations readiness. Once we do that, we cut you over. No longer has to be on a midweek, and then we monitor your solution through the first go live, where we come back and help you close your books. And again, it can go live, we would say typically 14 to 20 weeks would be a typical implementation for SAP. We're also now doing boot camp approaches, which enable us for organizations that want to do a really short go live, and we'll take a very templated approach. The boot camp approach is a way to really dramatically shorten this go live timeline. So once you go live in organizations, always say, well, how much support do I get? So the subscription with SAP Business ByDesign includes SAP Enterprise, it's called the Enterprise Support Cloud Edition, which is 24/7 follow-us-on support. So it has software break fix issues. You have a ticketing system that feeds directly into the SAP ticketing system. And more importantly, you have the ability to schedule local experts to chat. So there is how to, and then Phoenix has an overlay to this. We have our, what we call application management services, which is we do how-to support with either phone, email, and then our ticketing system. And we can actually hook our system up to your ByDesign system. So when your users submit a ticket in ByDesign, it comes to us, we can modify it, and we'll own that escalation and resolution with SAP on your behalf. And then we can take care of any report writing or how-to training as your organization grows. It's a nice way to, again, create a predictable cost of ownership on your IT support services. So I'm going to pause to see if anyone has any questions. If not, we're going to jump into SAP Business ByDesign. So I'm going to pause real quick and get my system together. All right. So without further ado, we're going to start off. We're going to go through a couple scenarios here. We're going to start. We do a day in the life, and this is kind of just give you a look and feel of the SAP Business ByDesign interface. I'm going to log in. The persona is the controller of this organization by the name of Iris Green. We're going to start off. We're just going to take a look at the interface. We're going to kind of drive around the interface and do some look and feel. We'll play with some personalization, and we'll probably take a look at a customer or vendor master, review some dashboards, and just perform some tasks in the system on a day, just as part of our day-to-day. So without further ado, this is Business ByDesign. You'll see I'm logged in as Iris, and I can tell because I've got my little icon up there to show me who I'm logged in as. And what we're logged in here is actually a home screen. This is actually what's called the overview, and it's just a dashboard. It's a personalizable dashboard that shows me whatever KPIs, which key performance indicators, or reports I like. I like to keep an eye on my liquidity, employee turnover, and my Maverick spend, which means unplanned or unbudgeted spend. And it's also giving me some work tasks. It's got some items. ByDesign is very much task and workflow driven, where I want to work towards zero, to work through these activities till there's zero, hopefully by the end of every day. When we go down, we can see really any sort of report we want, like receivables or aging. If you like to track your cash trial balance, of course, that's available here as well. Or maybe you're tracking your financial statements or your budgets by cost center. So we can actually see, if I want to see my finance budget and I blow this up, this is actually a live data. So it's actually showing me how I'm doing. My forecast items could be a planned item or an encumbrance on my budget. But let's go past reviewing and let's get busy here. Let's do some work. So I'm going to go to what's called my Launchpad. And what my Launchpad is a personalizable work center, where we use these things are called tiles to just create a list of shortcut items to just take me to what I need to work on. So we can click on this. On the left, we have all the work centers that are assigned to me. Now, Iris has a lot of work centers because I use her for demos. Most people in a production environment are going to have 5 or 6 work centers. The work centers aren't modules per se. They're really just a collection of functionality to perform a task or a role within an organization. ByDesign is not module oriented, it's work process oriented. So what do your users do? Which sets of functionality do they need to have to perform the tasks and roles within your organization? And so when we look at like sales order, it has all the items that would typically be associated with the sales order, or maybe, for example, when we do receivables, it would be everything to do with receivables, including collection case processing. So we define this for the user, but nobody likes to go through in a modern environment to go click, 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 and try to get to like invoice documents when I can just very quickly down here have a quick list to my invoice documents right there. This screen is highly configurable. ByDesign is designed, no pun intended, to make it very easy for people to come in and modify their screen. So say, for example, I want to have a list of my, say on accounts payable or accounts receivable, I want to have maybe a little aging list there, or a report. So I can just quickly come in here and let's go say net order volume. I think there's an aging KPI down here. Overdue receivables right there. So I want to put that in. I'll just check that. And now it goes and it grabs that KPI and shows me it's going down, but it is still $2.866 million. I really want to pay attention to that. So it's very simple and easy to just take any functionality here. So if I want to add like something for supplier invoicing, I want to have maybe the documents to be processed. I want to put that on here. I don't like going through the menus. It's very easy to add this. And then AR, maybe I want to call it something else. It's this easy to change the name of almost every field on every screen you see in the system. Not just this dashboard, but every field on every screen can be personalized to meet your requirements. Almost. There's a few exceptions. So very simple. Now, if I'm in an admin and I want to create this for everyone, I can go into what's called key user setting and adaptation mode, and then create screens and modify screens for everyone in an organization. So the neat thing about ByDesign, and one of the advantages of this technology, is I no longer have to do this with custom. So if you think of a traditional system, you configure and you customize with script and coding. In Business ByDesign, you customize with clicks. So it's click configuration as opposed to script configuration. This is one thing that makes it very easy and flexible for you to create and maintain going forward without having to involve, or highly knowledgeable IT people. We can typically train someone to do this within a day. So help is very important also, especially in a regulated industry where you have to have your own operating guides and procedures documented. We can actually create company-specific help and screen-specific help, and then tie this data to your system. So you can actually monitor it there. You can also put a help note, so individuals can put their own help notes here as well. We have in learning is embedded, so you can actually go to company-specific help. You can add help here. So if you're an admin, I'm an admin, so I can actually ad hoc. I can add help notes and screens on the fly without having to go into a special admin mode. This makes it, excuse me, this makes it very easy for me to be responsive to my users. So if there's a change or I have to document something, I can quickly do this without having to go through an elaborate process in the back end to get that published out to my users. And of course, my users can self-solve problems or incidents or track their responses within here. I also like to point out here is this schedule an expert. You can actually schedule an SAP person to work with you to resolve an issue within Business ByDesign. And that's all out of the box within the user interface. Is there any questions? All right, let's move on. So just playing with the interface a little bit. So it's an HTML5 interface, so we can actually, it tracks my access. So the nice thing here, it's not tracking to audit my behavior or my productivity. It's tracking this so that, for example, if I want to go to this project, I don't have to look it up. I can just quickly jump back to this project and see this project that I was working on. without having to go through the menus and look for any information. So it's very easy for me to quickly jump and see where I'm going, where I've been, and then go back to there very quickly. We also can do things like tag and flag items. So for example, if I want to take a look at this customer Silver Star, I can tag them because I deal with them all the time, and I can just have it quickly tagged and flagged so that I can quickly and easily come to this customer. Now, when I take a look at this customer, um, we'll see we have some sticky notes. Let's restore these. So these are sticky notes. What this is well, just what they are, sticky notes, rather than have them on your monitor where they really don't help anyone and are still on your monitor when you go home and try to work from home. We let us take these sticky notes and put them on almost anything. This is just about internal collaboration within the system. Notice note the embedded CRM. So when I'm looking at a customer, it lets me see that everything is here, that I have permissions. Notice I don't have service quote because I don't have permissions to create a service quote. So that's grayed out, but it's built on context basis with embedded CRM. If I want to take a look at any of their sales history, of course, we can see everything in real time. Their financials are also available to me. Now, this is all, I can see everything, but it is all context based. So for example, if I don't have permissions to see company 3000, I might see it, but I'm not going to be able to drill in. This is, and when we talk about drilling in, this is the web. Everywhere you see this blue hyperlink, that's a hyperlink. With permissions, I can drill down to source documents. I'm just going to take a look at this, and I want to talk about some functionality here that is actually directly relevant to life sciences, where one of the things we can track here is the concept of a distribution channel. Is we can define different sales organizations in different locations, and these could be different companies. This is actually like a Canadian company. This is a US company. We can define this. We can also define the distribution channel. So we can track for a customer. We can say, hey, this customer, I can sell them directly in France, but if I'm in Sweden, they have to be indirect. So it's very easy for us to track that, and then also track within that, depending on how I sell the customer, I might have a different customer terms, I might have different terms, and I might actually be tracking them to a different customer group, direct versus indirect. For compliance, it also lets me block them, so I can say, hey, this customer cannot be sold to in France, period, or they cannot be sold to in China, period. We can block them, and then that is actually built into the system. From a financial data, again, we can define which companies they deal with, and then all the bank and tax data. I will point out for bank data, SAP actually Business ByDesign comes with actually every bank standard in the world. We have to implement for every locality, of course, but we do, if you're in Europe, we support European bank standards, in India, Indian bank standards, and then in the US bank standards. All of that is out of the box. Is there any questions on that? So let's take a look at search real quick, because this is actually relative. So I'm going to look for Omego. They're a vendor, and I've got them on the phone, and I want to know everything that I'm looking for, everything that I've done with them. So I can just type in Omego, and it's going to find every record. There's actually about 601 items. Maybe let's see what types of records we have. And so this is going to break it down into me, the different types of records we have on them. So it's very simple, easy to use, and of course, it's very quick. But it lets me drill into any of these items at any point. So if I want to see all their, well, let's just see their purchase orders. That's every purchase order we've ever had with this customer or with this vendor. So just going to flip back to my PowerPoint real quick. And so we've kind of through the review interface, some personalization, some search. Let's take a look at, let's do some tasks here. And so what I'm going to do, actually, we have this clarification. And it's a request from my CFO, Edward Pink. He wants me to review this invoice, and this is our largest payment. Please review all documents. I'm sure our auditors will want to inspect. So let's see what's going on here. And this is the built-in communication workflow that when you're working on a document, you can actually forward to other people, but it lets us create ad hoc workflow with alerts, approvals, and requests. So I actually can say a notification, alert, and request, where we can actually communicate internally. Of course, if I create a request or an alert, I can also set up aging on these so that if someone doesn't handle it in a timely fashion, maybe I get an alert or they get a polite reminder, then they maybe 2 days later get a less polite reminder. So all of that is embedded functionality. So I'm going to go down here and I'm looking at this and it says it's a $13 million invoice. So I'm pretty sure my auditors will want to look at it. So I want to know what's going on. I want to know, how did we end up writing a check for $13 million? So I'm going to go to what's called the document flow. And what this is a visualization of my entire business process. So I can see here that there's a purchase order, inbound delivery. So that's good. Three-way match. And I can see there's 2, 3, there's 4 purchase orders. And of course, I can drill into these at any point if I want to take a look at the purchase order. I want to see if I want to see the journal entries, I can click on that. And of course, it will drill down into the journal entry. Now notice the breadcrumbs straight. So I didn't lose the invoice. It's still here. I'm just opening another window down here so I can just follow my audit process. I can see all the profit center and cost centers that was created. And notice all the tagging. So everything in my tax, my VAT is all tracked. So everything is, and also we'll see it's 2 sets of books because I have more than one company. My US company here is using US GAAP, but my consolidating books, because we're an international organization, is actually IFRS. So we post in parallel, which greatly simplifies my consolidation and my month-end close, but I can actually see the parallel posting in the consolidating set of books as well. So if I want to see a little bit more data, so I'm looking at the standard view, I can of course see even my internal reconciliation, like my clearing and outgoing checks. So I can see my clearing action as well. Is there any questions on this? If there are none, we will continue on. And we're going to stay as Iris, and we're going to put on our procurement hat. So we're going to take a look at some projects real quick, and we'll do we'll take a look at a R&D project. Then we'll take a look at the invoice entry, and we'll actually take an ad hoc invoice against that project and apply that. Then we'll take a look at a vendor card and some invoicing and approvals probably, and then we'll jump into some intelligent processing with the invoicing. Talk about that as we go. So let's go down to projects. Let me go to here, and we were there earlier, that one project. And we actually have a full project management within Business ByDesign. And this is actually sort of in the next phase for a lot of organizations when they're doing clinical projects. These trials can be very expensive and sometimes consume multiple years. When we're doing this, you'll see that we can actually, coming down here, we'll see like, if we take a look at this, we can see the percentage of my budget that's been created, but we can actually come down for every task, phase, and milestone. We're going to be able to say, hey, are we costing internally? Am I requiring people to book time on it? And if they are, do we require approval for that time booking? And do we require maybe work description? The work we can actually put in, we can define the amount of time that they're putting in. And of course, we can also have expenses, which if you're putting in expenses, so if you want to plan expenses for the project, you can actually come down and say, okay, this case, my transportation expense on this phase is going to be, $12,000. And then we could actually plan that over on period. So $12,000 spent when. And this actually fully integrates. So when we pull in the expense report from Concur, or if you're using just ByDesign's embedded expense report functionality, and you tag something as being to transportation, it will automatically consume this budget. And you're seeing some alerts here. And you're saying remaining workload and the outstanding delivery quantity. So it's actually giving me some alerts saying that people have updated some numbers here that have an effect. I just want to go also into on the product side. So you actually can, in ByDesign, also track if you're doing any purchase requests or purchase orders. We're able to track purchase orders associated with this project task. So a lot of organizations start out, they're not using purchase orders. ByDesign can work that way. You don't have to use purchase orders, but when you want to move to purchase orders, you're going to open up this whole world of having it embedded within your project. And when you create a purchase order, it encumbers your project with that predicted expense. If you are going into the point where you're doing manufacturing, we also have materials. So if you're consuming say, an expensive material that you are stocking, we can expense that off to the project and show that consumption against the project as well. And all the analytics are built in. So when you go in and you take a look at the analytics, your estimate to actual on work, labor, and then cost is all going to be tracked as a byproduct of you using this system. So let's grab this item here and show you how easy it is to capture cost against a project in ByDesign. So we're going to go to the project plan. Actually, we'll do it off the blueprint. We'll copy that just so I have that here. And let's go to invoicing. So we're going to change gears and we're going to go to Launchpad, accounts payable. And I have an invoice that showed up. There's no PO. So I've got that link, just a very simple tile because it's a common item, and it's Omego, the company I use a lot in my demos. And put in a date. What is today, the 4th? Put in the 4th. Now it's giving me very simple visual cues. So you can see everything with an asterisk is a mandatory field. So anything that is not, doesn't have, these are non-mandatory. Of course, I can add more fields and I can flag things that are mandatory if you insist they are. But in this case, we'll just say, and research services, and it's gonna be non-exempt. So I'm doing it, I'm not even trying to do product type or product category. And we'll just say it's 10 hours and $100 an hour. Notice I haven't bothered calculating my gross amount. I'll let the system do that for me. And now here I can come over here and I can assign to a GL account. And I'm going to do that legal, professional, and accountancy. And I can say, no, I'm not going to hit the GL account. I want to hit a project. So when I do the project, it's going to pull this up. And I can just paste that in. And now I've assigned this task. Now I'm going to quickly and easily just come over, whoops, go click happy there. I want to just in my supplier, I want to go in my actions. I want to calculate the total amount. ByDesign will be nice enough to do the math for me. And when I check it now, I'm pretty sure there will be so I know what I forgot. It's a new month. And I forgot to open up a set of books. So let's go, let's go over and open and close some periods really quick. And so I'm going to come down here and say, I'll make a gap. And I need to come in here in September and I need to open the period. There we go. And I probably need to do that. Oops, I shouldn't have closed that. I need to go, and this is again how easy the accounting is, because it told me that I had a problem. I kind of know that it's the beginning of the month. So now I want to look for set of books ID. I want to come and go down to IFRS. I'll probably need to, oh, that's actually already open. So save and close. Let's go check that invoice and check it again. Now it's okay because SAP is actually going to let me go ahead, and it said period number was closed for operational posting. I'll go ahead and post that. It'll catch that as an exception. So ByDesign will actually let me go through and continue working. And this is one of the nice things because it doesn't stop me. So actually it'll go into a queue that I can just go and clear that out later. So actually it does say, hey, it's going to be cleared, but actually it's going to go into a special queue for my accounting department of something they can clear. So once that error is cleared and the operational posting's done, they can move on. So it's actually one of the really nice things in the back end of Business ByDesign. So let's go into, we've done that, that posting. Let's go into scanning. So this is actually a new area that SAP, this is the Intelligent Enterprise at Work, where SAP has delivered the functionality that now you can scan your AP invoices and then create a PDF, or you can just have a file. If you have a vendor, save your vendor invoices that comes in by email into that folder. There's a little tool in ByDesign that will monitor the folder and auto upload it into SAP. And then actually it will start scanning and try to OCR it. And this is an example of what it can look like. And we can pull this information automatically into the system. and actually did a pretty good job of pulling this in. Let's see, PPD. I don't know if PPD learning materials. I can code that. Let's just create an invoice right from here. So the idea is to make it more efficient for your AP processing. They have all the information here. Again, they can pull this data here. They can, if they want to come down here and just maybe they want to code it a particular way, they can do that. They can post that out. I'm going to save that one because I don't want to, it actually does process it and get it out of my queue. But let's go down and take a look, for example, of this one here where I actually created an invoice. Let's take a look at this invoice that was created. So this is the one that came in, and I take a look at the created invoice, and it pulled all these items over for me automatically. The original document is then always going to be attached here for your auditing purposes later. So if you're centralizing your back office operations, so imagine what you can do is you can actually have people wherever their office is just scan, upload their AP invoices. It can then go to a centralized back office location who can then code these accordingly. So it's a great improvement in efficiency. And this is an example of SAP's ongoing investment and innovation. They delivered this in August. It took all of 4 buttons for me to click to configure it, and it just works. And they did not charge their customers any additional for this. This is actually just SAP innovating, leveraging the intelligent enterprise technology that it developed in. This is actually the same large enterprise document recognition artificial intelligence engine. That's the same thing that large enterprises are getting. They actually just deployed this for Business ByDesign for the mid-market as a value add. So is any questions on that? So if not, we're going to round this demo out. We're going to go play with production. So I'm going to change hats. I'm going to log in as a production manager, and we're going to review a bill of materials. And we're going to then take a look at running through production using batch lot controlled items, which means it's a little tedious because I have to actually tell the system exactly which components I put into this finished product, but then it also creates the audit trail. And we'll talk about this. So without further ado, we're going to log in as Iris. Have a good day, Iris. And I'm going to log in as the supply planner. And you'll notice my interface, it's just HTML5. I could be doing this from any browser. I could use a Chromebook if I want. Happen to be using a Mac. But I like to say, the war is over. Congratulations. The end user has won. It really no longer matters whether you use a Mac, a PC, or an Android. It's whatever you want to use, and the system will work just fine. So notice that I'm logged in as Richard Stone, and my world is very different. It's all about, there's nothing financial here. It's about planning, inbound and outbound production, and maybe some purchasing, and also my quality module. So this is an example of an embedded system. It's all the same system, but it's a different worldview based on the role. So I'm going to go down and actually let's take a look at planning and production master data. And I have what's called a production model for this chemical. And this is chemical X. I make it in 1 liter batch. And when I take a look at this bill of operations, you notice that I have pretty strong capabilities to define activities, descriptions, steps. I can have attachments and work instructions. But what's important here is that embedded, I actually have embedded a quality inspection. So it goes through 2 tasks. I have 2 operations, and then it goes to a quality inspection. So I've created 3 tasks in this. And then I'm consuming my product. When I take a look at my product, I have some reagents and some proteins run through various areas. Let's go take a look at one of these products real quick. And we'll go take a look at this in just a second. But actually, let's take a look at this product. So chemical X, let's take a look at the item master. So in a complex world, you need a robust item master. A lot of fields, like if you look at SAP Business Ones, I would just say it's just missing fields. It doesn't have a robust enough item master to support the volume of data and the data elements you need to support your business. So if we take a look at quantity conversions, first thing is ByDesign supports different quantities. So we're actually saying that You know, it's 1 kilogram or 1 kilogram equals 1 liter. And also we sell by individual capsules. So it's 10,000 each equals 1 liter as well. From a procurement standpoint, we see that this is actually blocked, but from a logistics, we can see that this is multi-site, so we can track different sites, and we can also track different storage groups. We support complex material resource planning and complex warehousing, because maybe this is a material or it has to be in refrigerated storage. We can enforce that so no one could the system will not let you accidentally put it on a shelf when it should have gone into the refrigerated storage. From a planning, we actually have pretty complex planning. So when we're looking at this, we can say, how do we consume our forecast, procurement lead times, processing and receipt times. If it comes in on the dock, how long does it take for that dock to receive it and move it on? And then the planning, are we demand or consumption driven? Do we have particular lot sizing? If we're using a consumption item, do you have a target stock level or a target days of supply, where if you have a long lead time item where you want to keep, 45 days of supply, ByDesign can calculate what is 45 days of supply at any time and create intelligent production and procurement recommendations based on that forecast. You can also set safety stock and lead times, and then also your planning. You can also, we want to talk about is minimum days of supply and minimum required shelf life. This actually becomes very important, because if you have something that has you have a product that requires something that has at least 60 days, and you have something that's only got 30 days left, you can't use it. So this is actually a really important field for, and having the ability to forecast, including this field, is very important in the life sciences, because you don't want to create a product that has an expired component. Availability. So this is, I only sell this in this location, and that is my available to promise check. We can also define this, of how we're tracking this. And then the sales unit. So everything about this is in liters, except that I sell this by units. So manufacturing, warehouse by one thing, but I sell it by units, and it's got a minimum order of 1,000. And then my valuation. We can set different valuations by different sets of books. Each location can also have its own valuation. So that your product type, and this is for a lot of less capable ERPs, is an issue, because you're going to have one valuation, or maybe one valuation per company, but ByDesign can actually have a different valuation by warehouse, depending on your costs for that material. So that's just kind of a side view through the production model and the material. So we have the production model, which is really the recipe to make this. You want to see the recipe itself, that is going to be here in your products. I've kept it very simple, but you can see when I'm consuming it. And then of course we can have variants on this. So if you have different packaging models, we can track that as well. But it's a very simple, very easy to use. Notice everything we have has to have a signed release. We call that an ECO, so that every revision to your recipe or your bill of materials must have someone sign off on that and then release that before it can actually be released to production. And of course, that's all date time stamped as well. So you could set something up to be released, say, in a month and a half. So let's change hats. Let's go back really quick. And oops, I want to go to my Launchpad. And let's go do some production. So I'm going to create a production order. Very simple process. And we'll do some chemical X. Let's make 10 liters. And let's say it should be done by Monday. So I can save that. Oops, it says, Richard, you're telling me based on how long it takes to make this that you're not actually won't be available Monday. You have to make it maybe by the 9th. So now it's checked and said, yes, that is, you can actually make it by the 9th, right? So it's not going to, if I have something that I'm going to make 10 units today, but I've told the system that 10 units production time is going to take longer than that, then it will actually bark at me and say, you can't do that. That's not realistic planning. And so it's forcing me to be realistic in my planning. So at this point, I can release this. Now we've sent that out. So when we go take a look at this, we'll take a look at the production orders. And I've, of course, created a filter. And we'll see that there's this production order. And you can see the tasks that will be created here as soon as I release it. And it's created some tasks. And you see that this task is ready to go. Because I've set precedents, I can't create these tasks yet until I complete this. So this is by design, forcing me to follow good manufacturing based on the recipe and the processes I've told the system to follow. Now let's go down to my production tasks, and I'm just going to click on here. And now this really takes me to the view that I would see out on the shop floor. I can see the tasks, the production order, and the work centers. Now I could filter this that only the people in the mixing work center see this, and then the processing people see this. For demo purposes, I show all of them, and we'll see this travel through this item. So as we're going to see here, we'll see the input products, show me the quantity. I could, of course, create letdown tasks. But let's go confirm this. So I'm going to begin the process. I could have instructions. I could have tasks, checklists that I'm going to do, but I've kept it very simple. Let's complete 10 liters. And when I do that, it's going to suggest, and I've set it for explicit. Why? Because I have to track the identified stock. So it's showing me this is the material, that's how much I have in stock. And for each one of these, I need to confirm, and it shows me green. I might have material that's in my system that is not released. It would show as red. So it will show the operator, hey, you have this, it hasn't been released. Maybe it's in QC, but it shows you that it's there, but it's not, until it's released, it's not going to let me put that into production. Now notice if I have an overage, I can record that because it's asking me for my actuals. And it's also asking me the source location. Where did I pull this out from my system? If I was using a barcode scanner, of course, this is SAP, we support that. I'm going to go down here and just finish this task. Notice I have to sign, date, time, stamp it. And as I do this, we'll come back here. We'll see that it's going to fall off the things. And the next item is now green. So it's traveling through my system. So let's go through here and confirm. And of course, so this one has a few more items. Let's just go quickly assign these. This is where I mentioned earlier the tedious part, because it will not, absolutely will not let me go through until I tell it which stock I used. And let's just do this to now what if I had a non-compliance, a quality related event? I could come up here and document that. It's important to be able to document compliance or non-compliance events. Let's complete this and let's finish this product. Again, signing that I'm done. Now, as I do this, we're going to roll off, and now it's going to go turn into the last one. Now, this one is where I had the quality, which means before I'm enabled to confirm this, it automatically pulls up my inspection. And notice it's saying, hey, Richard, this is actually, remember, it's 10,000 units, so it knows that it's 100,000 end units. I've got to give it a new identified stock. So I have to tell it the batch lot number. What is it? 2009-04. This is the second batch I've made today. I can date time stamp this, and I can put an expiration date. Say it's going to be in 2021. Say okay. Now I'm going to come over here and it's going to ask me, and I've set this to be a manual. We could also do ISO type evaluations based on conforming or non-conforming, where it'll automatically create the evaluation mode. But I found that in demos, people like to see if I can do this, but you can say non-conforming units, and then we can say it's pending, but I'm just going to accept that. And notice it's tracking who I did this. I'm going to finish my results recording. I could have recorded defects. And now when I'm done with that, it takes me to the confirmation. Auto fills my batch lot for me. Thank you very much. Makes it very easy for me. Come over here, review this. And I can have notes if I want to put notes, some attachments. Maybe I have my quality documents. I want to attach my test results. I can attach an unlimited number of documents here. They're securely stored by SAP in the SAP owned and operated data center. At this point, I finish it. And I hit close. and I've completed my manufacturing process for today. So let's round this out by taking a look at my inventory. Let's go to my physical inventory and some reports. And let's take a look at my identified stock report. So this is identified stock. This is the stock I just created. But I want to drill into this, and I want to see the details behind this. This is SAP's tracking this. Everything's here. So I'm going to go to the confirmation journal. It will show me, it will drill down into the document, the production confirmation. If I want to drill into that production, I can actually drill into that confirmation, and it drills into this. So all the genealogy tracing is right here. So it's all available to drill down into and to have all that information. Now, what if I had a problem with this? I come back here and I need to immediately lock all this. So this is some intelligent technology that SAP has put into here, where I actually have the ability on some actions. So I could block that. Now I've instantly blocked that identified stock. You will not touch that in this system. If it's cleared, I need to go back. Again, intelligent technology lets me, from a report even, I can unblock this now and release that back into my production. So that's going to round out the software demo. I hope I gave you a nice overview of SAP Business ByDesign. Thank you very much. I'd like to open this up for any questions you may have.
Mr. Chair, I see some questions in the chat box. I'll read them out to you. Do you have time for that?
I do.
What kind of security does SAP ByD provide? And why SAP ByD and not any other cloud ERP?
So why security? So we do support security within ByDesign. We can support a single sign-on using, including up to biometric user access security using an OAuth 2.0 provider. So we have just username and password security within ByDesign. You can set the password complexity requirements. If you are using OAuth 2.0, it'll inherit whatever OAuth 2.0 provider settings you have. Within the application itself, so ByDesign security, it's 128-bit encryption over the internet to the SAP data center. Then it's TLS 256. It travels, the data is never commingled in the data center. So when it hits the data center, it is in a virtual VPN using TLS security on the VPN. Then what it's going to go, or then within the database, it's stored as AES 256. So when it's traveling within the data center and within the virtual machine, it's actually encrypted as AES 256. It is only actually ever decrypted when you look at it on a screen or print out the document. And why ByDesign? Well, for an international organization, you know, there are other cloud applications out there, but none of them really have the end-to-end solution. I won't name names, but some of them are, you know, they were started as sales apps and then they bolted on additional functionality. And you see that they're not truly embedded. So ByDesign was actually embedded so that project management is integrated with production. If you put for example, if you sign a material to be consumed across a project, it actually can trigger a production order or a purchase order for you. So it is really the true embeddedness that it's all there. It wasn't something that was bought and then bolted on. Then if you're an international organization, it's, you know, frankly, it's SAP, because if you're going to go to Germany, you need to comply with German privacy and data standards. And not everybody does. Actually, there's some of my competitors that have had a real trouble trying to meet German privacy requirements and data requirements. For example, if you want to, India changed a lot of their legal requirements. SAP supports that. So if you're in the localization and you're running a multi-company, multi-country type operation, then there really is no one better at tax and system localization than SAP. They are the best in the world at that. They've been doing it longer than anyone else. And the tax engine within SAP Business ByDesign is actually the same tax engine that's in big SAP. A lot of people don't know that. So when we say that we can support your tax and localization requirements, if we can't do it, nobody can. And the fact that SAP does it for you is actually a huge reduction in risk to your organization, because tax compliance can really mess people up. And outside of that, my production capacity, my production capabilities are stronger than almost every one of my competitors across the board. We're just touching the base, but actually ByDesign actually has extremely robust manufacturing and multi-company, multi-country production capabilities. So you could have one company in your system that supplies a precursor agent for another company that then sends that out for an outsourced process, and then it comes back and it ships to a third country to be consumed in a final operation. I actually have customers that do that. ByDesign does that really well. We do that kind of complexity out of the box, and I don't think there's anyone better at complex multi-company, multi-country distribution capabilities than SAP. And you can start with 5 users and go to 10,000. There's that too. So did I answer that question to your satisfaction?
One last question, Richard. How long will it take to go live?
That is a function of the customer and the amount of time the customer has to devote to their implementation project, because I can add people to help shorten the timeline. So whether you are a big company or a small company, the tasks we have to do don't really change. We're not going to cut corners. The system doesn't actually let you cut corners to get you live. We have to accomplish a certain number of tasks. So then it becomes a function of how fast can we work together to complete those tasks. If your people are working a full-time job, say 40 to 60 hours a week already, and ByDesign is their second most important priority, then the timeline's going to slip. But if you can give me your attention, or you can give people who can give me their attention for 100% of the time, we can move the project on very long. I have seen ByDesign go live in a production facility in as little as 6 days. I'm not going to recommend that for anyone. It was 6 24-hour days. but you know, you can get ByDesign. I would say most companies could shorten it down to as low as 12 weeks. If you had a templated approach and you accept best practices, we can get it very, very quickly.
Thank you, Richard, for answering all the questions so patiently. Do you have anything to say?
No.
Or shall we wind up the session?
I have this thing. This is Venkat here. Thank you very much, Richard. You did a phenomenal job. Lot of things which we don't know, you enabled us and showed a lot of insights in ByD. Thank you very much for your knowledge and sharing with us. Thank you, Richard.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Richard, for sharing with all of us your valuable insights. I would like to thank all the participants for attending, asking questions, for giving us your valued time. Sincere thanks to Richard for his detailed insights. Last but not the least, a huge thanks to the technical team who worked behind the scenes to ensure everything ran smoothly. If you have any questions, please write to us at venkatnanduri@phoenixteam.com or call us on the number listed on the screen. And guys, don't forget to enroll for our groundbreaking acceleration program that's free for mid-market businesses. For more details, write to us at marketing@phoenixteam.com. See you soon at another interesting session. Thank you all. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.